Bali Girl. The plane touched down back in dreary London. As Dan looked out the windows at the grey sky and drizzle, he wanted to stay on the plane, travel with it to the next exotic location. Anything to avoid the British winter. The holiday had been a week in Bali with his girlfriend Kate. Sun, sex, and surf had been the order of the day. A couple of hours later, Dan and Kate opened their front door and stepped inside their cold flat. Looking in the mirror, Dan was pleased to see that his tan hadn't faded grey too. He was about 5'9" inches, slim build, with blonde hair falling down to his nose, with a little tuft of blonde hair on his chin. The first thing they did was to unpack. A week of dirty laundry waited for them, but at least it was their summer clothes, so there wasn't such a rush to do it straight away. As Dan threw his clothes in a pile on the floor, he came across one of his sarongs. "I guess I won't need this ever again," he said, commenting on the sarong. "I don't know, I think it looks sexy on you." "Sure, but I'm not going to wear it here, am I? Can you imagine going down the pub or shopping here wearing a sarong?" "I can, but only 'cause I can wear one without getting abuse," Kate said with a smile. The sarongs in question had been a new thing for Dan. When he'd first arrived in Bali, he was surprised to see most of the male locals and tourists wearing them. Reluctant at first, as he assumed they were skirts and therefore sissy, Kate managed to persuade him to buy one, just for the souvenir value if nothing else. Although shy to wear his blue sarong at first, Dan soon found it more comfortable and cooler than his shorts or trousers. Especially at night when it was best to cover your legs but too hot to wear trousers. Within 2 days Dan had purchased another 3 sarongs and wore them constantly until that morning for the flight home. "You can still wear them around the flat," Kate said. "No one will laugh at you." "Maybe just today, just to feel like I'm still in Bali for a little bit longer," Dan said before stripping his trousers off and wrapping the sarong around his waist. "Feel better?" Kate asked. "Yeah, it does, you know," Dan responded with a smile. A week later and Dan still wore his sarongs around the house. He found that he was more miserable than ever to be back at work, but by wearing the sarong at home, all his troubles just kind of drifted away. One night a couple of weeks after being home, Dan and Kate were sat on the sofa watching TV. Dan wore a green patterned sarong and Kate was wearing a knee-length skirt. As Dan shifted about, a bit of the sarong covering his legs fell away and exposed his hairy legs. Glancing across at Kate, he noticed how ugly his legs looked in comparison. "Does it bother you?" "Does what bother me?" Kate asked. "That I'm still wearing a sarong every day?" "No, of course not. Wear whatever makes you comfortable," she replied. "What about the fact that my legs are so ugly?" "Ugly?" "Yeah, and hairy," Dan said. "What do you mean?" "Well, you wear skirts a lot but you also shave your legs and so they look nice. I'm wearing a sarong a lot but my legs also show sometimes, like now, but they're so much uglier and hairy." "Well, if you want to shave your legs then do." "No, it was just a thought," Dan said as he pulled his sarong back over his legs and thought about it some more. The next day Dan returned from work to find a small bag on the bed next to a note. "I've just popped out to the gym. I brought you this today, just in case." Opening the bag, Dan was dumbfounded to find a pink razor, with a picture on the packaging of a woman with smooth legs. An hour later Kate returned home. "Hey honey, how was the gym?" Dan asked as he kissed her. "Wearing a t-shirt and sarong as usual." "Busy. Did you see the bag? With the razor?" "Yeah, I'm not trying to force you to do it, but you sounded last night like you might like to." "Thanks, I hope you don't mind then, because I did," he said, flashing a bit of smooth leg through his sarong. "Wow. Can't wait to snuggle up next to you tonight," Kate said before disappearing into the shower. She was bemused to see Dan's pink razor sat next to her own purple one. 2 days later Kate returned from the gym to find Dan wearing trousers. It was the first time that she's seen him in those around the house since the holiday. "Wow, Trousers again, huh? Oh, yeah. Well, it's getting colder now that winter's really moving in, and now my legs have no hair. It's too cold to wear a sarong. I guess I'll wear trousers until the summer, or at least until the hair grows back," Dan said. The next few days Dan was a misery. He complained about everything and was beginning to worry Kate until she came up with a plan. The next day when Dan came home, she had laid out his green sarong on the bed. Dan saw this but headed for his tracksuit bottoms to change into. "Dan, would you rather wear the sarong?" "Well, yeah, but I told you my legs are too cold." "I know, but what about wearing these?" Kate asked as she held up a pair of tan tights. "They look invisible on the leg. No one will know." "But they're tights. I can't wear those, they're for women." "Okay, suit yourself, but you'd be able to wear the sarong again." "Really?" Dan asked, looking longingly at the sarong. "Okay, I'll try them this once," he said, taking the tights from Kate. "Great, but one other thing." "Yeah?" "You'll also need to wear knickers, as your boxer shorts will be too big for the tights." I brought you some simple plain white ones today. Look," Kate said, holding a pair out. "Okay, fine, I'll try it, but I hope you don't think I'm turning queer or anything." The tights bristled against the stubble now on Dan's legs as he pulled them up. "You'll need to shave your legs again," Kate said, reading his mind. "Look in the mirror, Dan. I can't tell you're wearing knickers and tights, can you?" "Only by the feel." "Is it uncomfortable?" "Well, no." "Great, dinner's ready, come on," Kate said. At the end of dinner, Kate passed Dan a small pill. "It's a dietary supplement for the winter. It replaces the goodness you get from the sunshine," Kate said. Nothing more was needed to convince Dan to take the sunshine pill. Over the next few weeks, Dan kept taking the sunshine pills and was able to continue wearing his sarongs with the help of the tights and knickers. In fact, when he'd run out of clean boxes one day, he'd gone to work in knickers and oddly found he'd had the best day of work in months. "I guess I felt I'd taken a bit of Bali with me to work," he'd later told Kate. Christmas morning, Dan was up first. He pulled up his tights and wrapped the sarong around his waist, eager to get warm and make some coffee. Half an hour later, Kate too was up and the present opening began. Kate was a little nervous about just how Dan would react to her presents. As he opened it up and pulled it out of the box, Kate could tell Dan was a little confused. "It's from Bali," she said. "It's a skirt," Dan commented. In his hands, he held a green and blue flowery skirt. "Yes, but don't you remember, like the sarongs, the men wear skirts? This is a man's skirt. Look at the size, it's medium. If it was a woman's skirt it would have a number." "Oh. Cool," Dan said as he realized what he now had. "Try it on," Kate said. A minute later Dan emerged wearing the skirt. It was a perfect fit, falling just beneath his knees, unlike the sarong which went to his ankles. "It doesn't look quite right with the tights. Perhaps you should also open this," Kate said, passing him a small present. "Tights," Dan said, unwrapping it. "They're fashion tights. Black with diamonds. They look great with your skirt." "Great, thanks," Dan said before disappearing to try them on. Over the next few weeks, Dan wore the skirt lots, always with black tights. He'd now begun wearing knickers all the time now, even to work, feeling that by taking a piece of Bali to work each day his days were better and went quicker. He now wore black tights with the sarongs, although they were getting a little tired looking through so much wear. "Do you want my sarongs?" Kate asked one day as Dan had commented on the wear and tear of his ones. "Yours is pink and purple and things. And a little too girly. Says you wearing a skirt and tights," Kate joked. "True. Well, if you're sure, then great," Dan said, not thinking about the fact they were also shorter. As spring came around it began to get too hot wearing tights, so Dan stopped. His hair was getting longer and making him hot too, so Kate suggested he put it up. As the days got hotter, he found himself thankful for Kate's shorter sarongs but too hot on top. Kate combated this by wearing vest tops rather than t-shirts as he wore, and when he mentioned this to Kate, she suggested he buy some too. "I can't just go into a shop and buy vest tops. Will you get me some?" he pleaded. "Okay, but if you start wearing them then you'll need to shave your armpits and chest." "Why?" "'Cause you'll look horrible with tufts of hair poking out." "Okay, fine." The next day Kate arrived home with a selection of vest tops. They all had thin straps and were a range of colors to go with Dan's sarongs. As Dan was wearing his pink sarong he put the white vest top on. He'd already shaved his body, and as he looked in the mirror he noticed his nipples poking through the tight top. The t-shirts he normally wore were loose, so wearing the vest top almost made him look as though he had small breasts. "You pierced your ears," Kate said a few days later, surprised to see small silver studs in his ears. "Only one ear. I used to wear a stud in one ear when I was younger. I just thought I would try it again," he said. "Great," Kate replied, a little shocked but pleased at the same time. Dan's appearance has been changing rapidly over the past month thanks to his own willingness to feel closer to being in Bali and the sunshine pills that he took every day. Kate's hope was that soon, she would have him crossing right over to becoming female without even realizing it. Only then would Kate's bisexual desires be fulfilled. "You should also wear a necklace to match them." "Wow, yeah. I might look for some matching sets. Thanks," Dan said. One evening sat on the sofa, Kate was painting her nails, trying to work out how long it would be until Dan would need a bra. His breasts were coming on, they were probably nearly a B cup. It would be a tricky subject to approach, so she was putting it off for as long as possible. "Those new work trousers are great. A much better fit than before," Dan said of his new hipsters for work, breaking Kate's train of thought. "That's great, January," Kate said. "Jan? What's Jan? You called me Jan." "Did I? Sorry honey. You knows this pink will really look great on your toes." "Really? Don't you think I'm taking this sarong thing a little too far?" "What do you mean?" "Well, I just feel like it's becoming more than just wearing a sarong now," Dan said. He was sat cross-legged on the sofa, his smooth legs poking out of a new white skirt that Kate had got for him from Topshop. He wore a pink vest top, his hair tied up with slides and clips, with a little bit dangling down at the front. From his ears dangled a pair of earrings that matched the necklace he wore. "Obviously, it is as you no longer seem to wear sarongs," Kate said. "I think you need to stop worrying about what you're wearing as long as you're comfortable, January." "Really?" "Of course. Look, have some nail polish." "Okay, thanks, Kate." That night Kate decided to put a bra in Dan's underwear drawer alongside his knickers. The next morning Kate could see through his shirt that he was wearing the bra. That evening Kate couldn't help ask him about it. Dan surprised Kate though when he walked into the room. He was wearing a yellow flowery dress, a pair of kitten heels and full makeup. "Dan? You know better than that, Kate. My name's January." "What are you wearing? Isn't this your plan to turn me into a woman?" "Yeah, but wow, you look gorgeous." "Thanks. You're not the only one that wanted me to change. The past weeks I've been practicing my makeup and have even visited a doctor. I'm going all the way, Kate," Jan announced. "That's amazing. Are you sure?" "Very. The sarong was only the beginning, an awakening if you like. I haven't been so happy because of a connection to Bali but because I've felt more normal becoming a woman. Thank you for helping me, Kate." "My pleasure honey. So where should we go on holiday to celebrate?"